Well, good day to you. It is January the 5th, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. If you are new, and if you have been here before, I want to welcome you back. But if you want to know more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, that is totally understandable, and it's totally fine. Now, the best way to do it is to read more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, why he's coming back, who is he coming back with? What does it mean for humanity that he and these group of masters are coming back to teach humanity directly after eons upon eons upon eons, directing and helping humanity indirectly through their disciples? What does it mean that they are coming back? Well, if you go to some of these websites, they'll tell you more about that. If you want to know more about the priorities of Maitreya, what does humanity have to do first to help save our planet? There are other websites that talk about that. And then there's also websites that touch on the many miracle signs that have been going on for decades in one way, shape, or form. So they're there for you if and whenever you want to look into it. You want to join the discussion? Post a comment, post your question in the comment section. You can also email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. But I want to thank Universal Consciousness, Jason Mondragon, Renee This, Ashwak Radati, Liberte de Expresión, and Ricardo Pels Wesley. You guys, thank you so much for commenting. It's going to give me something to talk about before I read one of Benjamin Creme's Master's articles to you guys. So anyway, let's get on into it. Ashwak Radati, what do you have to say? I hope save our planet will become an internationally known phrase. Yes, you're not alone. Actually, Benjamin Creme's Master wrote an article not too long ago talking about that very thing. SOP, Save Our Planet. He wants that to be the rallying call that will rally those people who are interested in saving the planet to do something about it, not just talk about it. So you're not alone in wanting that to be an internationally known phrase, Ashwak Radati, but thank you very much for the comment. Renee This, I love Lord Maitreya. Well, you're very kind in that. All right. Let's see. Universal Consciousness, Jason Mondragon. And yes, that is one name. I do appreciate your critical contemplation on this topic. The Theological Society? Are you meaning the Theosophical Society? Or just the religious groups? Are well overdue for a unifying revamp. One that encompasses not this world, for as we connect to truth, all that we are, we need to be united. All right, well, the Buddha, I think, said it the best. Not saying that you didn't say it a very good way, too, but much more simply, I think he put it, there's no religion higher than truth. And there really is no ideology higher than truth. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about religion or politics or economics or whatever. The truth is that we are one, like you're saying. We are one. You know, now is the time to talk about it with people, to bring it up to them. You know, we're living in a world where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going on in the world, about the future and those kind of things. What we need now is more people talking about the truth that we are one. Now, of course, it's going to help when Maitreya really start out there talking about it, but, you know, you can start the process now if you so choose. The only way to really bring about manifested unity on this planet is to start with the principle of sharing. Maitreya says, without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. And without peace, there will be no future. Now, justice is, well, let me go back. Sharing is when nations learn to give up some of their excesses and resources to help other countries that need it. And according to the masters, every country, doesn't matter how big they are, they have an excess of something and have a need of something. And no matter how small the country is too, they have an excess of something to give, and of course, probably more needs than the larger countries, the richer countries. But every country has something to offer. Every country has some needs. And we have enough resources. We have the logistical framework and infrastructure to schlep the food and the resources from one point to another. And I talk about these links. There is a link that talks about the Marshall Plan. It doesn't talk about it in this way. But it was, according to the masters, the only time that the principle of sharing ever took place. And it was just for about 4 years amongst just a few nations, the Western European nations and the United States in the main, right after World War II. Now, here is what you might not think about. And the websites that talk about the Marshall Plan don't talk about it in this way. Those nations that participated in the Marshall Plan have not attacked one another since then. They trust one another better. It's not a perfect trust and it's not a perfect peace, but they trust each other better than any other nations on this planet. Go look it up. You know what I'm saying? None of those nations have attacked one another since the implementation of the Marshall Plan. None of those nations have tried to usurp the other nation or anything to that degree. And, is it perfect? No, but it is a measure of goodwill. So sharing does bring about justice. And what it means individually, is that every man, woman, and child on this planet, without exception, doesn't matter where you live, the religion, creed, racial makeup, whatever, how much money you have, will have as a right food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, and education, and social services. Those are what they talk about in the United Nations Article 25. So that's what the principle of sharing will kind of look like, what justice will look like when it's starting to manifest on this planet. It will bring about peace because it has shown to bring about peace. The Pax Americana policies of the last 70 years of the United States, except for the Marshall Plan, have not brought any peace, any security, any safety, or lack of, lessen the violence, lessen the chance of war. They have not. In fact, in most cases, it's increased the chance of war if you really look at it. So if it hasn't brought about peace, it ain't going to bring about peace now. But the Marshall Plan has brought about peace even after it stopped. So there's some evidence for those people who need evidence about whether Maitreya is speaking the truth or not. And then in terms of the future, I'll leave you with what Benjamin Creme's master said about what does the future mean? Is it more of the same? Is it more of the same drudgery, the same difficulties, the same looking out for number one and at the expense of everybody else? The way he puts it, I don't think you can get anywhere else. He says it's the promise of revealed divinity. And that's the truth. The truth is that we are all divine. The truth is that we are all one. The truth is that the only way to bring about that unity, that oneness, is to bring about the principle of sharing. That's why I like to talk about it in nearly every video. But thank you very much for your comment nonetheless. All right. Liberté d'expression. La Antichrist arrive. Maitreya sera possédé par Satan. What does that mean? Translate into English. The Antichrist is coming. Maitreya will be possessed by Satan. I liked it better in French. It sounded a lot better, even though I don't speak French. You can pretty much say anything in French and have it sound cool if you really speak French really well. You can cuss in French, and as they said in the movie The Matrix, it's like wiping your arse with silk. I would say this. This is what I say to you personally. I doubt you're listening to this. I doubt you'll ever listen to these videos at all. But anyway, name me one thing that Maitreya said that you've heard him say that leads you to believe that he's the Antichrist. Please, by all means. I welcome that. Now, when I talk about Maitreya as the Christ, I'm not talking about him as an ideological demigod, as the way that the fundamentalist Christians view their Jesus Christ to be. And believe me when I say their Jesus Christ, that's more accurate than saying Jesus Christ, because there are so many different interpretations of who and what Jesus is, what he means for humanity, what he means for even the Christians, that you can't really universally say Jesus Christ. Now, can you? There's black Jesus, there's Semitic Jesus, there's white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, there's Jesus that backs the neo-Nazi fascists, there's Jesus that's the ultimate capitalist. I mean, these are all views of what Jesus is, and it's all based on the person themselves. Maitreya said, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. Think about it. Just think about that one thing. We create God in a way, and we worship. It's basically like we're worshiping ourselves in the process, because we see God as us, and we see God as we are, and that how we relate to the world. So if you think God is very critical, I guarantee you're a critical person. If you think God is kind of laid back and kind of nonchalant, guess what? I bet you're laid back and nonchalant about things and so forth, especially when it comes to different people's beliefs and those kind of things. So it is very important to see objectively your own ideologies. Can't stress that enough. But anyway, And then the other thing about the Antichrist is the Antichrist, of course, people are expecting the Antichrist to come back. They look for the Antichrist. They can't wait for the Antichrist to come back, because that's going to mean what? That their Jesus is going to come back, just as predicted in the Bible. Even though nothing that was predicted in Revelation is coming to pass exactly how it was written, or interpreted at least, in Revelation. It's all symbology. So what is the symbol of the Antichrist? Well, the Antichrist is not meant to be interpreted as an individual. It's an energy, and it was an energy that was released during the time of World War I and mainly during World War II through the Axis powers. It's a way of destroying the old ways of thinking and relating to allow a new way of thinking and relating. Now, if you are still somebody who is very concerned about the Antichrist, scouring the internet, scouring YouTube to think of anybody that could possibly be the Antichrist, well, if you want to waste your time like that, waste your time like that. But the Antichrist has already come and gone and done its work. We see each other, relate to each other differently. We see the world and the universe and ourselves within it far differently than we did 150 years ago, before the Antichrist energy was released, 100 years ago or so. And it will continue to do its work all throughout the remainder of this age, over the next 2,500 years-ish or so. But good luck trying to find them. And I know people try to label Maitreya as the Antichrist. They label Barack Obama. Some people will label Donald Trump. It's always who you don't agree with ideologically about something is the Antichrist. It's never your guy. If you're a Donald Trump guy, you're never going to say Donald Trump's the Antichrist. That's why I voted for him. But, the Antichrist, can be looked at in other ways too, about people who claim to be the Christ, claimed to, represent the Christ, but yet clearly do not. You know what I mean? So that's the other way I think of interpreting that, who and what the false prophets and the Antichrist and the false Christs are and all that stuff. Now, Ricardo Pels-Wesley always leaves on if I read this at the last bit, it always leaves at a high note, because he always leaves such positive and, I think, considered to be truthful comments. Most of the comments remind me when Yeshua came 2,000 years ago. Even the Jews did not recognize their Messiah. Then, alas, so it is today. Have hope and faith, and see beyond the veils of illusion that conditions men's thoughts and actions at this momentous time in history. Absolutely, 100%. Verily, brothers and sisters, I come to tell you that you will see me very soon, each in his own way. This is a direct quote from Maitreya. Those who look for me in terms of my beloved disciple, the Master Jesus, will find his qualities in me. Those who look for me as a teacher are nearer the mark, for that is what I am. Couldn't have said it better myself, Ricardo. Thank you so much for that. Now, I want to read the very, very first article that Benjamin Creme's master wrote through Benjamin Creme that was published in Share International over 40 years ago. And I'm doing this for a few reasons. One, from time to time, and here recently I had somebody who fit the bill with this. They complained that this is taking too long. Now, ironically, I can guarantee you, because this is the irony of it, is that this person probably didn't put any time or effort into anything to do with Maitreya. It's just they're throwing it out there like there's no truth to this based on the fact that they haven't seen, it hasn't unfolded the way that they expected it, I guess, when they first read this information, which is understandable. I totally understand that. I just don't understand why people keep coming back and telling me, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. But the thing of it is that these masters see time differently than we do. We don't see time as it really is. They do. They're not conditioned by the illusion of time at all. So they have a hard time sometimes even communicating to people like myself, like the time that Maitreya said, you'll see me on TV real soon, and we'll change the world together. He did say that to me, but that was back in 2009, I think. 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. Had I been thinking soon, I was thinking maybe a couple weeks, right? Well, it's been going on a little bit longer than that. But from his perspective, it is soon. So you can't really go by that per se. The other thing is that things are unfolding if you really look at it. And you have a keen observation to what's going on. The divisions in the world, the strife, the continuous destruction of our environment, and then you have half the world denying it, the other half wanting something to be done about it. These are exactly what was predicted by Maitreya and Benjamin Creme's master decades ago that would happen. And it's unfolding before our eyes. It's painful, but it is unfolding. Now, the other thing, too, is I want to just throw out something that Benjamin Creme said when he read this article at one of the conferences back in the, it's been a while ago. I think it was probably about 20 years ago that he read this, and we talked about it as a group. We all discussed time and how masters see time and so forth. But he said something that's very thought-provoking and got me to think about this, and the reason why I want to read this article first for this year, because we are starting a new year, is he said, why do you think his master chose the New Age concept of time as the very first article? Well, it's because he knew from our perspective it would take a while. From their perspective, it's already happening, and it's already happened, and it will happen. They're all seeing that all at one time. Benjamin Creme did a painting about time that was quite extraordinary. I wish I had a visual copy of it, because he described in artistic terms the difference between how we see time and how the masters see time. It's not the most aesthetically beautiful painting, because it was red and blue, and when you put red and blue together, and those are the only two colors in the painting, they create this dissident kind of reaction between it. But if you follow what he was saying and how to look at it, you get a better understanding of how these masters see time versus how we see time. And it was, like I said, it was a teaching that was done in artistic form. Quite extraordinary painting. All right. A New Age Concept of Time by Benjamin Creme's master. A much-needed change in the life of humanity will come about when the concept of time has undergone a transformation. Today, most people think of time as an ongoing process, linking moments of actions, whereas in truth, time is not a process, but a state of mind. When we see this, we will transform our lives and enter into an altogether closer understanding of reality. A wonderful new freedom will become man's, and no longer dogged by the limitation of time. He will soar into his birthright. How is this to be achieved? At present, most of us are confined within the rigid framework of our daily activities. The means of living has to be earned. Decisions have to be taken in relation to others' needs. A constant battle goes on against the clock and the remorseless, quote-unquote, passage of time. There is little hope within our present modes of living of any fundamental shift in our understanding of time. Now, for the first time in history, the possibility arises for a completely new experience of that phenomenon. And social transformation is the key to this desirable happening. When humanity is one, in fact and in truth, time will disappear. When man approaches life from the inner, creative standpoint, time will lose its hold over our minds and thus free us from its tyranny. All of this requires a new assessment of man's place in the universe and the establishment of a truer rapport with the source of our being. It has become customary to speak of time as a passing sequence of events. A new and more correct view of time becomes possible when man takes the steps to align himself with his higher self. This achieved, the way is open for a truer understanding of cyclic activity and non-activity, and thus of time. Such a correct understanding is inherent in a correct relationship to our fellow men. For only when the sense of separateness no longer exists can a true realization of cyclic activity come about. A new world order, political and economic, is the essential prerequisite for this truer vision. For the required sense of oneness can be achieved only when harmony and justice prevail. What this means in practical terms is the creation of structures, political, economic, and social, which will bring men together and create the sense of oneness on all planes and in every field. When men see this, they will take the measures to implement the necessary changes and pave the way for the establishment of correct human relations. For that new relationship between men will emerge the conditions on which a new sense of time depends. From the master's viewpoint, time exists only in the sense of cyclic waves of activity followed by non-activity, repeated infinitely. He is completely unconditioned by time as sensed in the three worlds of human experience, and must make constant adjustments when dealing with his disciples, for instance, in order to accommodate his meaning and intentions to the state of consciousness of those still ensnared by time. Already, signs are appearing that men's minds are beginning to realize the inadequacies of their approach to time, and it will not be long before an intellectual appreciation of this fact becomes more general. Inherent in many of the discoveries of present-day science is the assumption that time is dual, and more this will condition men's perception of reality, but only as a result of man's direct awareness of himself as part of an integrated whole will a true realization of time be his. When man creates around himself the forms and structures based on unity and brotherhood, essential for that integration to take place, he will stand on the threshold of an entirely new experience of reality, from which will flow a steady stream of creativity, unlike aught seen before in this world. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.